Good morning. I have just dropped Rowan off at his childminders. It is a work day for me today, and I realised that it's actually been 6 months of me being a part-time working mum, and so I wanted to make a video all about it, kind of like where we were at the beginning with him doing half days, and then now with me doing full days but still part-time, answering your questions, diving into the whole thing, because I find it really interesting, especially as somebody who is self-employed and went back to work relatively early compared to a lot of my other mum and parent friends. Also, this video is sponsored by HelloFresh. More about them later in the video. But now I need to get home and get myself set up for a work day. All right, we are back. We're all set up. We are ready for a work day. We tend to have a good routine in the mornings. I don't have an alarm. Rowan is my alarm, and Dan tends to leave for work whilst we're getting ready. Like he's gone and he's out the door, so mornings are mostly me. I try and get like house chore stuff done whilst I'm with Rowan and I'm on Rowan time, instead of having to do them whilst I'm working, because I do work from home most of the time now rather than at the studio, which I just use for kind of like big filming days and recording days. So it can be really easy to be like, oh, I'll just like do the washing or unload the dishwasher and like do house chorey things whilst I'm working, but I try not to. So we did those this morning. I managed to eat my own breakfast and we got Rowan ready and Rowan played, and then it was time to head to his childminders. He has breakfast there. Sometimes if Rowan wakes up really early, then he'll have a double breakfast, like a breakfast with me and then with her, but not today. But I do like to give him a bit of a booby feed before we leave. But yeah, it has been 6 months now. Rowan started at his childminders when he was just 3.5 months old. I'm so glad he did, and that was so right for us. But when I look back at pictures of him at that age, I'm like, you're so tiny! You like, what was I thinking? It's ridiculous. He was young because I'd decided that with my job, 3 months was like the max that I could really take off and not be like making anything or posting anything, especially like with working with my team and stuff. So at the beginning, he was doing half days because the idea of that tiny little squish being away from me for a full day, I couldn't do that. So it was half days. He did 4 half days a week, and each like chunk of time he did was 4 hours long. I really enjoyed the half days. Like having a half day with a baby, especially at that age when they're not really doing much, they're not as like interactive and stuff. Having him just for half days, I found really manageable without getting like bored. And whilst I enjoyed having half days with Rowan, I didn't really enjoy doing half days of work, because with like drop off and pick up times and like getting settled and like transitioning from like one mode to another, realistically, I only had 3 hours to work in. And also during that time, I usually had to eat lunch and pump as well. 3 hours is really not a lot of time to like get stuck into work. And so what I also found when I was doing half days was that I struggled to like switch off, and especially because it would be like I'd be working in the morning and then like emails that I'd sent like would come back in the afternoon, but then I wasn't working anymore, but I was still like in work mode even though I was with Rowan, and there weren't that many work-life boundaries during the like half days. It was really difficult to maintain that, and it was really difficult for me to get everything that I needed to get done in the time that I had. I would often be working in the evenings and then trying to work around when I had Rowan as well. I didn't really feel like I had the ability to do everything that I wanted, and also everything that I was doing just felt so rushed. Like every second, every minute was accounted for. It was like, go, go, go. Like I felt stressed for most of the day. But a lot of that is kind of hindsight as well. Like when I was in it, I was just like, this is just what it is, and this is what's working for us at the time. But then after the Christmas Hanukkah break, we felt like that was a good time to transition to doing full days, because Rowan was 8 months by then and was down to 2 naps a day instead of the 3 sort of. So from 8 months old, Rowan started doing 3 full days a week at his childminders instead of the 4 half days. I technically got a whole extra day of work, but it actually feels like I've got a whole lot more than that because I'm doing less toing and froing, less back and forth from here to the childminders and stuff. I also just feel like I've got so much more breathing room. Like I'm not rushing every second of the day. I've got time for like things to go wrong or for me to kind of like go off on a bit of a tangent instead of having to be like so on schedule. I do miss Rowan though. The first few days that I was doing this new schedule, it would get to lunchtime and I'd be pumping, and normally that would be then when I would go and pick him up, and I was just feeling really sad because I was like, oh, I've got to wait like a whole other 4 hours until I see you. But that has definitely gotten better. However, if it's a slow work day, which has maybe happened once or twice, like it doesn't really happen often, but if I'm having a bit of a lull, unmotivated day and I'm just like twiddling my thumbs and not really able to focus, then I really miss him, and then I'm just like, I just want to go pick him up. I just want to sack off work today and go hang out with my baby. But it's so weird, right, how our brains do this, and please let me know if you're the same. But you get to like the end of your work day and you're like, I can't wait to see my baby, I can't wait to see them. And then I'll get home with Rowan and it will be another like 45 minutes or so until Dan gets home. And that 45 minutes goes so slow. I'm like, come on Dan, get home, get home, get home. And it's just so difficult because you find yourself like wishing you were with them when you're not. And then when you're with them, you're like wishing that you're not. Like, it's so tricky. But because I'm doing 3 full days of work a week, that means I have 2 full days with Rowan a week. And those are super fun. However, I need activities. I need there to be plans because those days can be so long, especially if it's raining. If it is raining, then you're just like, oh my God, it's gonna be a long, tough parenting day today. But oftentimes I'm just like, screw it, we're going out in the rain. That's what's happening. I find parenting out and about, like having something to do, being busy, getting out of the house, I find parenting that way so much easier than I do if we were just at home and I was having to parent him at home. I'm team, let's go outside. So I asked my followers on Instagram if they had any questions about being a part-time working mum and like how all of that goes, and these questions I'm very excited to get into them. But first, I need to actually get to work because there's stuff that I need to do today, and I'm going to tell you a bit about the sponsor, HelloFresh. Thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. HelloFresh are so important to us when it comes to having a stress-free dinner time. When it comes to being a part-time working mum and Dan also working full-time, just being able to have like dinner taken care of is amazing. They are a recipe box service and they send the exact ingredients of everything you need along with some delicious recipes straight to your door. So that means less time meal planning and going food shopping, and just more time being able to do the things that we want to do as a family. It is super easy, especially as someone like me who's not like naturally an intuitive chef in the kitchen, but I do love following a recipe. That is where I shine. And it's great because it means that we're not eating the same thing every night, and also getting to try lots of different new foods and recipes that I would never have been able to come up with by myself. HelloFresh are all about sharing the joy with their delicious home-cooked meals, and actually Dan and I have recently started getting the 4-person box. Previously we were just getting 2 people, but now we're getting 4 because it means that we've got leftovers, but also if we have family coming to stay, because we do often have people staying and visiting us and Rowan, it means that we can cook for them too. It's great. The other night I cooked me some fragrant chicken, coconut and curry with baby spinach and easy zesty rice, and it was delicious. It was so yummy. They have loads of different options and ranges that you can pick from. There's their rapid range, which are recipes that you can cook in 20 minutes. They also have veggie options, and for spring, they've got some childhood classics if you want a bit of nostalgia with your dinners. They have so many different recipes to choose from and lots of different ranges. I tend to gravitate more towards the rapid range, which are recipes that you can cook in 20 minutes, which are really handy when we don't have a whole lot of time in the evenings. They also have veggie options, and for spring, there's the limited edition childhood classic range if you want a bit of a nostalgic trip down memory lane. So if you want to try HelloFresh, you can get 60% off your first box and then 25% off for the next 2 months, including some free gifts when you click my link in the description and use my code MOREHANNAH60. There's also a fancy little QR code that you can click as well. So thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video, and on to your questions about being a part-time working mum. Okie dokie. Okay, there's so many interesting questions here. Did you compare yourself with other mums like your NCT group? I do that all the time. Yeah, the comparison can be tough. I'm in a very different situation to the other mums in my NCT group because I went back to work so much earlier. However, now they're all going back to work, mostly full-time, maybe doing like 4 days a week or something, and I'm still part-time. And so it's kind of like gone from me not being able to hang out if it's a work day to now I'm like, I'm free, who wants a play date? And they're like, I'm working. And so yeah, it's a weird one. I've had moments of comparing myself, but actually I think I compare myself in a way of like, I like this setup better. Like the idea of being like a full-time parent to Rowan for the last like 9 months is a bit daunting and sounds a bit boring. Whereas I just really loved the balance of being part-time. Like, yes, there's stuff I miss out on, but I've definitely preferred the balance. And then the idea of like being a full-time parent and then suddenly you're going back to work full-time. Like they do settling in for the babies at nursery, but I think the parents need settling in as well. Like that is such a huge shift, and I'm really glad that I've been able to have like this gradual part-time move and transition into working and being a mum. Would you prefer to work full-time if that were possible? I wouldn't. Even before I got pregnant, I did a 4-day work week experiment where I took Fridays off. So even if I did increase my work hours, I would work maximum 4 days a week because I think everyone should have a 4-day work week if that were possible. I loved it, and yeah, I'm hopefully, touch wood, never going back to working full-time. What's something you enjoy about being a part-time working mum? I enjoy a lot of things about it, but I think the main thing is being able to have this like quality time with Rowan, but then that not being the only thing about my identity. And I do enjoy working, as cliche as it sounds, like the balance and like getting to do both. Can she have it all? Not really. I enjoy it. What new skills have you gained? For example, more efficient because limited work time. Yeah. Oh my goodness, especially when I was doing the half days, no time to procrastinate at all, no. So I think I've gotten better at that. I think I've also gotten better at prioritizing. So what is actually important? What do I actually need to get done right now? Because I used to kind of busy myself with work that wasn't really important. So it's really helped me be like, okay, what do you actually need to do and what can wait? And actually there's a lot of stuff that just continually gets bumped and bumped and bumped, and that's like a helpful cue to me to be like, maybe that thing isn't actually that important to you and you should reevaluate things. Hannah, how would your life look like an ideal world concerning family and work? Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, that's a big question. I like the setup that I have, but I think I would also want to make it like more possible for Dan to be more flexible with his work, which just isn't right now. And he said to me as well that he does get jealous of the like one-on-one days that I have with Rowan. So I think that's the only thing that I can think of that would kind of complete the picture, is Dan being able to like work more flexibly and have like more one-on-one time with Rowan whilst still being able to afford to live, you know? Balance with your partner with regards to housework, parenting, how not to feel angry at them for doing less. Oh yeah, this is such a huge topic. My friend Melanie, who's got 2 kids, said this in an Instagram post recently, where you can never split things 50-50 all of the time, and it's about bringing 100% of what you can in that moment to any scenario. And I think when I see Dan giving his 100% and I can really feel that what he is doing is his 100%, then that feels good. And yeah, of course, we like talk and communicate about like who's responsible for what and all of these things. When you can truly sense and you really know that what they are giving is their 100% and you're giving your 100%, it's hard to feel angry at them for what are then circumstances beyond both of your control. How do you find the full days versus the half days? I find the full days of work less stressful, more manageable. I find the full days with Rowan like a bit more slow, but then also I really love them because we can do more things. Like we can go to more places where we wouldn't have had the time to like go on certain adventures in just a half day. Why did you opt for childminder over nursery? No particular reason other than we looked at some nurseries, we visited some childminders, and we just went with the one that we liked the most. Are you still time blocking / using the same methods you used to for planning? Yes. Let me show you my calendar situation at the moment because things have escalated. Okay, I had to scroll quite far forwards to get to a blank week of what just like a standard week looks like for me. If you watch my old calendar blocking video, the foundations of that still exist. So I've got my like yellow calendar, which is the one where it's like meetings and I have to be somewhere, I have to like physically show up to something. Then there's the red calendar, which is my to-do list, and that's synced to my Todoist app. And then the blue calendar is personal. But we have since added 2 more calendar. One is the purple one, which is the Rowan calendar, and that is shared with Dan, and that tracks like when he's at his childminders and not, and or like any other activities and things, or like medical appointments, health visitor, like that kind of thing. And then there's this Hannah's working hours calendar, which I created, which I've shared with my team and my manager and things, so that they can just like look at that and see when I'm working. So if I've got a day off, or if I have to switch around Rowan's hours, or his childminder is closed like over Easter and Christmas and all of these things, so I'm parenting during those times, so I can't work. So I'm like delete out of those. So this is what it looks like. So the Hannah's working hours calendar then looks like this, so people can see when I'm working. And then this is what this week looks like. This week is quite intense and busy. And then there's my working hours. How do you feel about you working part-time and not your partner? A lot of career resentment over here. Oh, yeah, it's real. Dan and I did say at one point to each other, like, oh, wouldn't it be so much better if he was the freelancer and I was the person who had a normal job and so got like statutory maternity leave and all of that, and so then he could be more flexible. Alas, it is not the case. I don't get resentment towards Dan for the situation. I do get resentment towards just like the system in general, but then also I get like this weird resentment towards being a statistic, me being the woman in the relationship and working part-time, me doing like most of the childcare as like the primary carer, me reducing my hours, me having my income like take a substantial hit because of having a baby, and Dan's not being affected at all. I'm not resentful towards him for any of that, but me and him do very much kind of like tick all of the boxes for like hitting the, you know, the general stats about like what happens on average after like a heterosexual couple have a baby. Does Dan do part-time too, one-on-one time with Rowan? So no, he doesn't, but he does get some one-on-one time with Rowan on the weekends, especially if I'm like, I'm going out. I'm doing things with my friends without the baby. And then some evenings as well. But no, Dan works full-time. How do you fit in socializing? Great question. I either fit in socializing with other mums, so I'm there with my baby and with Rowan, or I do my socializing without Rowan in the evenings and on weekends. Not all of the time, obviously, but on occasion, and then Dan will be looking after Rowan. As much as you obviously love him, is there a part of you that enjoys the break being at work? Of course! I mean, all of the like talk of me finding like parenting and spending full days with the baby like being boring and stuff. I love him to bits. He's like the most fun to be around, but it can just, you know, be a bit much, especially if you've got no time to like talk to another adult. And if you spend the entire day only interacting with a baby, that does things to your brain. Are you able to switch off work on days off with Rowan? Yes, and honestly, I'm able to do it so much more now and better now than I was when doing half days. It was so much harder to switch off when I was with Rowan on a half day work because I'd already like worked half of that day. So it was harder to switch out of it. Whereas now it's just like I wake up in the morning, I'm like, this is not a work day. And it's so much easier. And it's so much easier to set boundaries with other people in terms of when they expect you to be working and stuff. Right, I need some fresh air, so I'm going to continue answering these questions outside. Was it hard to trust another person to take care of Rowan? Oh, that's an interesting question because I don't think it was for us. We just got such a good vibe from the childminder and we just instantly felt at ease, which is what you want. But also, I think we'd warmed up to it slightly because even when Rowan was quite little, Dan and I like had our first date night out together, the two of us, when he was like 3 months old. My parents looked after him. So we did a lot of like trusting Rowan with family members quite early on. And so then that helped, I think, with the transition to childcare. How do you and Dan track your money? Joint accounts? Yes, we have a joint account. We also have separate accounts, but we pretty much pull most of our money into the joint account, which is where everything comes out of. I used to create my own spreadsheets tracking our spending and stuff, but it got to the point where it just wasn't doing what I wanted it to and it wasn't serving what I needed. And so I looked around and I ended up trying this app called You Need a Budget, or YNAB. It was recommended by a couple of my patrons and I'm obsessed. It was a bit of a learning curve, but it's really great, and that's like how we are tracking our money and our spending and our budget and our goals and all of that. Knowing what you know now, would you have taken longer mat leave if you'd had the chance? That is such an interesting question because it's hard to not like just take your situation and your circumstances always into account, but if we ignore all of the factors like my job and money and like everything, and it was just like my ideal scenario, I would have taken 6 months off with Rowan. That being said, I enjoyed the half days when he was 3, 4, 5, 6 months old. So I don't know, would I actually do it any differently? I'm not sure. Oh, and this next question. If you were to do it over again, would you do it differently? I think no. If my job situation is the same the next time I have a kid, hopefully, then I think we would do it the same again. I think it's also been really good for Rowan to be in childcare from like 3.5 months old. We've not really experienced any of the separation anxiety that I was told would be a thing around like 9, 10 months old. He's not had that really badly, and that might just be because he's gotten used to me not being there and always coming back. I don't know. Are you happy with the content you have been doing since coming back? I think it's all been great. Thank you. I am happy with most of it, but I definitely felt like I was in a bit of a creative rut with the channel at the end of last year. Like when I was working part-time, it wasn't to the standard that I was hoping it would be. I also wasn't feeling like that excited about a lot of the things we were doing. But now that we're doing full days and I can like give more of myself and spend more time working on these things and like do more ambitious big projects, I've been loving it. This is a good question. Who takes the sick leave between you and Dan? So we haven't had to navigate the sick leave thing yet, but there were like 2 days where Rowan's childminder was closed pretty last minute. We managed to work it out that I took Rowan on one of the days, which was a work day for me, but luckily it was the kind of work that I could just bring a baby along to and it wasn't a big deal. And then the other day, Dan took off work to look after him. But I was also working from home that day, so Dan looked after him and then I just did feeds. Do you find the travel between childminder and workspace a helpful mindset transition? Yeah, I think I do actually. And also it means that I actually get outside every day, which is good. Did Dan consider doing part-time or condensed hours? I'd love my partner too, but it's a no-go at the moment. He did consider doing condensed hours at one point. That was something that we talked about, but because where he works doesn't offer like a 4-day work week, it would be condensed hours, so he would do like 4 days, but they would be longer days. Actually, we decided that no, that's not what we wanted in terms of a lifestyle. Like, didn't want Dan to be like leaving at 7 and getting back at 7 or 8, like even later than that, like after Rowan's gone to bed. So we prefer the shorter days, but over 5 days for currently where we're at. Oh, I'm feeling a little flushed. We are back inside now. How did you deal with feeding him? Was he always okay with bottles? He was okay with bottles from birth. So luckily, we did not have to deal with any issues there. How to deal with parental guilt. It's killing me. Interestingly, you say parental guilt, but I think it's gendered and it's mostly mum guilt. Like, that's the phrase that most people use. And I think there is a reason for that. I don't know the gender of your partner. I don't know your like pregnancy birth situation, but does your partner feel the same guilt? Ask them that. It can be really hard to avoid. Like, I feel guilty sometimes for leaving him, but then I also sometimes feel guilty like when I'm with him, but I can't mentally be fully with him if I've got work on the mind. But then also, like, I see how much he loves his childminder and how much fun he has there with the other kids and stuff. And I'm like, he's so loved, he's so happy, he's having a great time. What's your favorite thing to do with Rowan on parenting weekdays? Oh, I love hanging out with other parents and their babies. I love seeing Rowan interact with other little babies, especially as he's at that age now where he actually like acknowledges other babies and other people. I don't know, we do lots of different things, but you know, if there's like a play group or a soft play involved, then that is really fun. I keep on meaning to take him to a city farm. Is the thing that I want to do. I want to go to one of London's free city farms with him so he can meet lots of animals. How is it emotionally on the full days working? Yeah, it's interesting because I get so wrapped up in work that I'm like fully focused on work, but then every time I pump, I like look at photos and videos of Rowan to help with the letdown. They say that that helps. And so then I'm like, oh, my baby, I miss my baby. And usually by the second time I'm pumping, because I do that right before I leave, I'm like so excited to see him. I'm just like, ah! But I tend to just kind of like focus on work quite easily, but I do miss him by the end of the day. As a self-employed business owner, do you still pay yourself a full-time salary? Yes, I do. One, because I can, because I've got business savings, so I'm still able to pay myself what I was paying myself before, despite the fact that the business hasn't been making as much money since I've been working part-time. We'll see how long that can last for. So yeah, we will see. But also, all of those companies that are like experimenting with a 4-day work week, they reduce the hours for their employees but pay them the same. So I guess I'm doing that, but 3-day work week. Do you think having Rowan away at childminders helps rather than in-house care? Well, for one, it helps in terms of finances because having an in-house nanny is another level in terms of expense. But also I think it helps in terms of me being able to focus, because if we could afford a nanny and that was something that we wanted to have, then I would probably still be feeding him, like breastfeeding him, and that would take time away from work, and also I'd be able to hear him, I'd be able to like, I don't know, that's just not for me. It's not for me. How do you work through exhaustion? Is parenting or work more tiring? Parenting is for sure more tiring, but I think that's just because you have to do it 24/7 and at night. I think work for me is like more brain tiring, and then parenting is like more physically tiring perhaps. And then working through exhaustion, I've got no advice. I just do it. On that note, I need to continue to work through exhaustion. I've got some meetings this afternoon doing some YouTube video planning and then also working on my rebrand and website stuff. And then I need to pump and go pick up the baby. enjoyed this video. Hope it gave you a little bit of insight into what it's like being a self-employed small business owner, part-time working mum, and all of that. If you do have any follow-up questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. I'll be around for a bit to answer any of them. And thanks so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Don't forget that you can try your first box for 60% off and then 25% off your next 2 months plus some free gifts when you use my code MOREHANNAH60, and the link will also be in the description. I hope that you're doing well. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!